Welcome again. Now our guest is Mr. Drago Bosnic. Mr. Drago Bosnic is an eminent uh, scholar, journalist, a writer, and defense expert, and he has been writing in various newspapers in the world. Mr. Bosnic, welcome to this interview.
Thank you very much, Mr. Choudhury. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. First of all, as things are happening in Syria, so let's begin with the Syrian issue. With the Assad leaving Syria now, country is practically, in my opinion, going into the hands of some Al-Qaeda elements and Islamic terror groups. So with this risk, I mean, how do you see the future of Syria and what risk Damascus may pose to the region and the world?
Thank you very much for the question. I hate being pessimistic, but unfortunately, the people of Syria are already going through a very tough period, particularly because the jihadists and the terror groups that you mentioned are the new so-called government. They're not even a regime because they haven't been really formed. The mainstream propaganda machine has been trying to sell us this idea that there's this so-called Syrian opposition. There's no such thing as a Syrian opposition that exists as a unified force that actually has some sort of unified policy. The only unifying aspect of these terror groups was to get Assad out of Syria and to topple the government. Unfortunately, they achieved this on the 8th of December, as we all know now, and they have the country in their hands. Now, considering the fact that these people are the proxies of the United States and these other countries that participated in the invasion of Syria. And as I always like to point out, it was an invasion. It was not a civil war. Now, what we're going to have in the future is a civil war. But prior to the fall of the Syrian government, it was an invasion. Unfortunately, this invasion was successful, just like in 2003 in Iraq or in 2011 in Libya. And there are many other countries we can mention, but let's just focus on the Arab world for the time being, because we see that Syria was the last sovereign Arab nation and the last truly secular Arab nation, if we don't count Algeria. And with the fall of Syria, there's not a single sovereign country left, Arab country left in the Middle East. All of them are in some way or form allied to the United States or are in bed with the United States and its proxies in the region. And unfortunately, we cannot expect anything good for Syria in the coming years because they've lost their sovereignty. They've lost their military as well, because the military has been pretty much disbanded. Much of it has been destroyed in recent Israeli airstrikes. So we cannot expect Syria to get back, to take back its sovereignty anytime soon.
So it means that you're saying that we should say the Assad leaving Syria, meaning the country has entered into a very uncertain era or uncertain timing. So this is a kind of the regime change, what we can say. And who are the main players behind this regime change? Because I'd like to praise that in Turkey they are saying that Erdogan is the architect of the regime change, and we can suspect also the deep state. But do you see also hands of Soros behind this regime change in Syria?
Yeah, we could say that because Soros has been saying that Assad was a butcher and a dictator and so on, even though we had elections in Syria, unlike in Ukraine, or well, we didn't have the cancellation of elections, unlike in Romania, and we didn't have any sort of other types of meddling that the deep state likes to do in various sovereign countries, or countries that are trying to become sovereign but they cannot become sovereign because of the U.S. meddling. Of course, the interesting thing is they always accuse other countries of doing what they're actually doing. So it's always this sort of projection that we get from the political West, especially from the United States. And I just want to point out, I think the U.S. Was the main architect of the dismantling of Syria as a country, and these other allies that you just mentioned, these other allies of the U.S. in the region, we all know which ones have actually helped destroy Syria as a country, because for them Syria was a sort of a threat. And also Syria was a prize. Syria has a lot of resources, especially oil. It has a very important geographical and geostrategic position. And of course, it can be exploited. And what else? How else are you going to do it except by financing these fanatical crazies from all over the world? And they really are from all over the world, which is one of the reasons why I think this wasn't a Syrian civil war, as the mainstream propaganda machine keeps saying. In order to have a Syrian civil war, you need to have factions within the country that are fighting each other for power or whatever. The point is, this was an invasion. And even if we just look at it from a geographical standpoint, where did this invasion come from? From the southwest, where Syria borders Israel, and south, where it borders Jordan, and from the north, where it borders Turkey. And of course, also from the east, where the ISIS, the US-backed ISIS, by the way, was stationed in Iraq for all these years. And the result of all this was the toppling of the government, a legitimately elected government. And they can keep calling it Assad regime, whatever, but the government that's in the making right now is actually a regime because it was imposed from the outside, and it was not chosen on any elections. And we cannot expect to see any actual elections in Syria in March or whenever it's supposed to happen. We can just see that the country will be run by puppets, and we all know who the puppet masters are.
But as you say, as we know that this Soros, he has now destabilized Syria. Previously, he has destabilized my country, and also he has been destabilizing many countries, attempting to destabilize countries like India. So, with this kind of a track record of George Soros and his son, Alexander Soros, and their bunch of organizations, can we now brand Soros as a monster, or it will be overreaction?
Well, it certainly wouldn't be an overreaction considering what sort of people he's been financing. And I mean, it's the age-old strategy of financing the craziest, the most extremist elements in any society in order to destabilize the society. And of course, in this regard, let's say in Muslim countries, they will support Islamic radicals. In European countries, they will support the neo-Nazis and these other crazies who just want to eradicate anyone that disagrees with them. So, let's say in Latin America, they will support the cartels. In various countries, in different countries around the world, they will always support the worst possible people because that's the way for them to destabilize these countries. And of course, Bangladesh being one of the most important countries in Southern Asia, and also a prospective member of BRICS before the latest events of this year, this is very important for them because it destabilizes BRICS. It destabilizes India as one of the cornerstones of BRICS. And of course, it pits Bengalis and Hindus against each other, even though they've been living side by side for thousands of years. And they're essentially, I would say, brothers and sisters, which is what you mentioned in your several interviews. And I agree with that 100%. A person can be a Hindu, a person can be a Muslim, but they can still be part of the same culture or a similar culture, similar civilization, which is the case for most people in Southern Asia. So in order to disrupt the cooperation between countries, the best they can do is to push these extremists into power and then ensure that nations start hating each other, and then they can cement this hatred for decades or even centuries in some cases. And of course, this is a way to slow down the spread of the multipolar world, which is primarily sovereign more than anything else.
We know that Biden will be in the office for less than 2 months now. And during this time, he has already destabilized many countries with the help of Soros and others. Now, Trump will be coming to the office in White House. I mean, his inauguration is on January 20th. So he's getting a war extremely messed up Ukraine, messed up Syria, messed up Bangladesh, messed up Afghanistan, and many other countries. How Trump is going to tackle the whole thing?
Well, I think what Trump is going to try to do first is to take America back to a more defensible position in a geopolitical arena. He understands that America is overstretched. He understands that the United States cannot fight 5, 6, or 10 enemies at the same time. Um, I'm not saying, I don't like to say that Trump is is a God-given gift to the world. He is part of the American establishment. He is surrounded by people who might, change his previous opinions about certain things. They might push him into certain situations which are very close to war. So we cannot expect him to, single-handedly change American foreign policy. And we're not talking about decades, but centuries of American foreign policy. So, on the other hand, we do understand that he's a businessman. He has a large family. He doesn't want Armageddon. The most important thing about Trump, he doesn't want nuclear war. He has stated that multiple times, unlike his opponents in the deep state, which are essentially pushing us all through to Armageddon. So whatever bad he does on a more local level or a regional level, of course, that's part of the U.S. foreign policy. We can expect that. But at least we will have a world to live in. If the current deep state gets its way, we will have nuclear war. And I don't want to sound too pessimistic or try to promote any ideas that might seem extreme, but how else are we going to describe these people? Because they keep talking about the possibility of winning nuclear war. We should understand that nobody can win a nuclear war. Even a relatively limited exchange between certain countries, regional powers, can create enormous problems for the rest of the planet, let alone a global nuclear war between superpowers such as Russia and the United States. However, these people think that they can win, they can come out on top. Trump doesn't believe this. I think this is the most important thing about Trump. As for other things, it's difficult to say what he's going to do. We can hope that he's going to keep his promise of ending the NATO-orchestrated Ukrainian conflict, and also of ending support for extremist organizations, such as the ones that took over your country or the ones that are trying to take over other countries or have taken over other countries, such as Syria. So we can hope that he's going to keep his promise about that. I don't know whether he will, but I surely hope that that's
Yes.
going to be the case.
You know that Donald Trump is the president of the United States. He is not the president of any other country. So
Exactly.
he will only uphold his own country's own interest. And as you say, he's a businessman. So a businessman, he may even give concession to many regimes that has been planted by Soros and the deep state and continue. And in this case, there is a perception within the people in Bangladesh and also the people of India that Trump presidency may bring bad news for Mohammed Yunus, who is the head of the interim regime in Bangladesh, because Mohammed Yunus is a business associate of Hillary Clinton, and he has been consistently opposing Trump. Even he tried to get Trump defeated in 2016. So, in my opinion, I mean, yes, Trump may not be uh, doing what he's trying to say, even in Ukraine, he may not do what he is trying to say, even in Israel, but it is a personal matter of likings and disliking, hatred. Is known as a Trump hater. So, do you think Trump can replace him with someone else upholding his own country's business interest? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it could be possible. I'm not sure to what extent Trump wants to get involved in other countries, be it Bangladesh, be it Syria. He already said that he doesn't want to get involved in Syria. He said that he wants to get out of it. Now, I don't see a reason for him to try to, go against Bangladesh or try to. At least, I think the least he could do is not to prop up the current government in Bangladesh. On the other hand, he might try to support the other side because he understands the importance of the relationship with India. India understands that the previous Bengali government was far more pro-Indian and it was far more friendly to India. So it's in the interest of India to have good relations with Bangladesh. And Trump is going to try to improve his relations with India because he believes that India is an important part of his what he sees as the containment of China. I'm not sure if India is going to fall for that trick, but however, India can find common ground with the U.S. With the Trump's U.S. in Bangladesh, and that means that Trump might actually cut all support for the current government. If that's going to, I'm not sure if that's going to, get the government out of power, but it might give the chance to to other Bengalis to change the course of what's going on now in the country. You're going to, of course, Bangladesh is going to take years to complete this, but there is a chance, unlike with the Biden administration, which fully supports the current government.
Trump has already invited Xi Jinping to his inauguration ceremony. So
Yeah.
it doesn't signal that he is going to fight with China. He may try to reach into certain kind of settlement with China. And to my understanding, Trump is not going to be giving any discount to any country without the interest of his own country. Even with India, as you said, that he considers India as important as it is. And also in Trump's team, if we know, Tulsi Gabbard or this cash paddle and many others. But at the end of the day, Trump is the boss. He decides everything. Neither Tulsi Gabbard or cash paddle or anyone. So in this situation, I mean, Biden administration, before leaving the White House, almost few weeks before leaving the White House, he has given $50 billion again to Ukraine. And I'm sure that this is the last part of the money he's giving. By giving this money, what is the signal? Does it show that Trump is also going to continue the Ukraine war?
Well, he said it. He said repeatedly that he's not going to continue the volume of the so-called military aid that the Biden administration has been giving. Now, I want to point out that the money that the Biden administration is supposedly giving to Ukraine is not actually going all to Ukraine. Much of it, if not most of it, comes back to the U.S. through various channels, such as the former FTX, as was the case in previous years. It's going back to the coffers of the DNC. That's one of the ways for the DNC to still have money because they've lost a lot of their donors because their policies and their so-called values are pretty much repulsive to any sane person. And of course, a lot of people didn't want to support them. They've gone way too woke, so to speak. And of course, this is something that any normal person simply refuses to accept as any sort of value. So because they've lost so many donors and they've lost so much money, they need some other ways to have any sort of cash. And of course, the so-called Ukraine aid is a very good way to do that. On the other hand, much of that money ends up in Ukraine. And of course, the Kiev regime forces are using that money to wage war. They will lose that money or most of that money when Trump comes to power because Trump understands that he doesn't want to fight this war. He understands that America has way too many problems at home and also close to home that it needs to deal with. And Ukraine is the last one, is the last thing they have to worry about, particularly because it could cause nuclear war. And any sort of confrontation with Russia is the end of the U.S. and the end of the world too, but the end of the U.S. And of course, America has not been in this situation for quite some time after the Cold War. But Biden has pushed it. Biden has pushed it, and the Russians have had to increase their battle readiness of their strategic nuclear forces. And of course, this is putting America at risk because, I mean, if you have a country with 5.5 or 6,000 nuclear weapons that is essentially trying to wage a defensive war against NATO, then this country could actually fire its arsenal if it considers that its existence is jeopardized. We haven't gotten to that point, but it seems to me that the Biden administration did everything in its power to escalate things to nearly to that point. And of course, it's not in Trump's interest for this to continue. I just hope that um, he will be reasonable enough to make a deal with the Russians to just end the bloodbath in Ukraine.
Actually, for Trump, I know that Trump he's not a globalist, he's a nationalist. And Trump will not focus on giving a lot of money, continuing giving money to Zelensky, and when he knows that this war cannot be owned, and Trump is a businessman. So instead of giving money to Zelensky, he will end this war, and naturally, if the war ends, there's no Zelensky, someone else, and Trump will have equal business with Ukraine and Russia together. This is the European part. It is my personal opinion. As to China and India, I think Trump is going to have twin relations. He is going to have relations with Xi Jinping, balance of power. He is also going to have a relationship with Narendra Modi. It is my personal opinion. And about Pakistan and Bangladesh, because Pakistan is now involved in Bangladesh, I think Trump will have a political upside down in Pakistan, because this government is a result of Biden's government in Pakistan. So Trump may bring back some other government, or he may even want the country to go under military rule, Pakistan, because military rule is always good for any country for doing business. And Bangladesh, now, the Arakan army has already captured this Mongdo, the Arakan, they have taken the full control of Arakan. And Arakan and Myanmar is under the influence of China control also. So with these complicities, as you said, Bangladesh stands as very important and significant in this Indo-Pacific game plan. And for Trump always trusts good partners. He doesn't deal with the bad partners. And as I said, Mohammed Yunus is known as a Trump hater. So what is your suggestion? And this is my last question. How Mohammed Yunus can somehow convince Trump and remain in power, or he should get his luggage packed, because Trump is going to be tough on him and change him with someone else.
Well, I think it's going to be very tough to convince Trump that he can be, that Yunus can be his friend, considering his relationship with the Clinton clan,
Yes.
And of course the Biden administration itself,
And
because
also
they
also Soros.
Or Soros, exactly. And of course, we know that one of the closest associates of Trump is Elon Musk, and Elon Musk, we know his opinion on Soros and his organization. So when we consider all this, it means that Yunus will have to change his policies dramatically if he wants to build a closer or working relationship with Trump. Investment in Bangladesh is going to go down, or it has already went down because of these people. And we know that, of course, for Bangladesh, it's important to develop its infrastructure. The previous government, led by Sheikh Hasina, was building nuclear power plants, which are important for the development of various industries in Bangladesh. And these people who have replaced her, they haven't stopped the project, but they've certainly disrupted it. And of course, this is slowing down the economic development of the country, which is the most important thing. If you can develop the economy, the people can live a better life, they can get jobs. They're not going to be exposed to extremism, because if a person doesn't have a job, if a person cannot feed their family, and so on, then these hyenas that come in from other countries, especially from the United States and these other NATO countries that are supporting the Soros and his organization, they cannot get extremists, because it's very easy to create extremists in countries that don't have that have bad economic development. So in that regard, I think it's very important to see if Yunus is going to support the development of the economy, or if he's going to continue the same path that those who brought him to power want. If he changes, then things might change for him in his relationship with Trump. If he doesn't, we can expect that the Trump's U.S. is not going to be very friendly to him.
Yunus wants to have enmity with India continuously. He wants to push the country into the hands of Islamists, because Yunus has not come to develop Bangladesh. Yunus has been planted by the Soros and the deep state to loot Bangladesh and natural resources. And I think, it's my personal opinion again, Trump may not appreciate that branded man of Clinton's and Soros continuing power and disrupt, they intervene into India's national security. India is definitely a major ally of Trump. So to Trump, India is more important than Yunus. And
Certainly.
Trump will not abandon Bangladesh. Of course not. Trump will just exclude Yunus and keep Bangladesh and take America, ensure America's national interest from Bangladesh through India, or by having joint collaboration with India and also keeping China at bay. This is my opinion, and I'd like to get your last concluding statement on this matter.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me once again. And I just want to say that I really hope that the situation in your region is going to stabilize, especially because of India, which is an important partner of Bangladesh and has been since essentially since the invasion and genocide committed by Pakistan and half a century ago. And this relation with India, this essentially alliance with India, was one of the defining moments in the history of Bangladesh. And losing that is going to be a disaster for the country. So rebuilding these ties with India is going to be the defining moment for Bangladesh in the future. And who knows, maybe Trump's presidency might actually accelerate the normalization between India and Bangladesh, and let's hope that's what happens in the foreseeable future.
Mr. Drago Bosnic, thank you so very much, and it has been always pleasure having conversation with you. And with this session, I would like to again hope that we are hoping that in the future we will join again to discuss some other issues.
Thank you very much.